Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my review of Season 3 of Supernatural on the CW. Still trudging along through the series. Of course, Season 12 is starting in October, so there's no damn way I'm going to be able to catch up in time for that. Because, it is a show you could probably binge watch and stuff like that, but, I sort of like to take it in a little bit more slowly, and I like to also mix this in with Shameless right now and such. I sort of like savoring it and just like enjoying the journey, not like trying to rush to catch up or anything. But I do plan on catching up eventually. I'm just not sure when that's going to be, and I have a hell of a lot ahead of me. I reviewed Season 2 back on August 30th, and I reviewed Season 1 a little while before that. I just finished Season 3 tonight. Have the DVD right here. I bought it before I was even halfway done with the season. That just goes to show you how much I love Supernatural at this point. Supernatural is just a great show. And, I'll tell you right off the bat, Season 3, it's probably my least favorite season so far. Season 2 is probably my favorite at this point anyway. Season 1 definitely had some great stuff in it as well. But Season 2 just sort of like built off of that, really. Overall anyway. You can go back and watch my reviews to really hear more about that, but not to say Season 3 is bad. Going into it, for some reason, I heard some people saying it was like a lot worse for some reason. It definitely wasn't a bad season. It just didn't like wow me or like overly impress me like certain parts of seasons 1 and 2 did. And again, that's not to say it's not bad. Again, that's not to say it's bad or anything. Just it didn't really again amaze me like the first two seasons did. But Season 3 definitely still had its gems in it. Definitely still had its standout moments, and it was definitely a fun season in its own right. I think it did have quite a few pretty good episodes in it, and it definitely left off the season on quite the cliffhanger. If you thought Season 1 cliffhanger was something, the way Season 3 ends, oof, it's a rough one. I felt like certain parts of the season were a little bit lighter than like the feel to certain parts of Season 1 and 2. But by the end of it gets kind of dark. And this season, of course, does still have its more serious moments and such. So before I go on contradicting myself, maybe we should actually get into my review of the season more specifically. Season 3, it doesn't really affect my stance on the series. Like I said, it was still good, and if anything, I'm more of a Supernatural fan than ever, I'd say. Supernatural, it's definitely already earning its spot as potentially one of my favorite shows. I'd be willing to say that even now, but of course I'm still wanting to give it a little bit more time. Although at this point I've watched about 60 or so episodes of the show, and that's more than some whole series go in certain cases. Being Human, one of, if not my favorite show ever, the US version anyway. That only went 40 some episodes, I believe, or close to 50. And so I've already watched more of this. So really, it's starting to really stack up against some of my other favorites, I think. Not to say it's going over Being Human or anything yet, but it's definitely earning its spot already within my top handful or two, for sure. And so much to the point where I'm already planning on ordering this really cool zip hoodie for the show that has a really cool design on it, of course, with the brothers and such. And I'm also planning on ordering these bracelets or these wristbands that say bitch, jerk on it, and as well as the anti-possession pendant to wear around my neck. So I think the show is definitely growing on me, just a little maybe. But yeah, and the covers, man, the covers of the show are always really cool, very nice. And like I said, I bought this just a couple episodes into the season, so that shows you how much confidence I already have in it. And I already looked into buying Season 4 online. I'm not sure if I'm buying it at one of my local places yet or ordering it online yet, but Season 4 sounds like it's going to be even better. Of course, I think it's going to be the first season with Cassidy. I'm not sure if that's how I pronounce his name, but I've heard and seen a lot of different promotional stuff about the character for a while, so I know about him being on the show. But hopefully I'm not butchering his name. But yeah, let's open it up. I always like the formatting to these sets too. Like a lot of the CW stuff, a lot of like the Warner Brothers released stuff, like a lot of times falls into like this really similar like formatted case for their seasons and stuff like that. But this one, but Supernatural really has its own thing going on, I think. And of course, you got the main cast list right there. It was cool to see Katie Cassidy in this. Of course, she is Laurel on Arrow, and which is a show I still kind of like, but I kind of honestly gave up a little bit on Arrow. Season 1 was good for what it was. Season 2 is good as well, but I'm just not that interested. Supernatural's a whole lot better. It's definitely more my style anyway. And then she did a good job on this though, and I also even liked her in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake in 2010. Lauren Cohan also has a sort of a reoccurring role in this season. Of course, she plays Maggie on The Walking Dead. She was also Rose on The Vampire Diaries. She's just done tons of stuff, and I really liked her on this. Although where it ends up happening to her character, Bela, I feel like it was a little anticlimactic in a way, but again, it sort of makes sense. But we'll talk about that once we get more into the season. As usual with my Supernatural reviews, I'll sort of go through all the episodes and just sort of give you my brief thoughts on each one of them. Give you a look at the inside of it real quick. Yeah, it's a really cool format to it. It makes it feel like it's a really complete set, even though it's just one season, There's a lot going on with the pictures. There's plenty of stuff about Supernatural to geek out over. I don't need to geek out over the DVD set for 20 minutes, do I? But yeah, the Season 3 opener, The Magnificent Seven. Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, pride. When the Devil's Gate opened, hundreds of demons escaped, including the 7 deadly sins, who've now taken human form. And of course, that was one of the main setups for Season 3, with all these demons now being released. Sam and Dean would be busier than ever. And of course, with Doomsday Clock now ticking on Dean, he only has so long to live because of the deal he made to bring Sam back. And I felt like the main story, that was basically the main story aspect for this season. I felt like it was executed well. I got to play a little bit on Dean's psyche, which is always one of the highlights of the show for me. But I felt like they could have had a little more going on with the main story this season. I just felt like they were sort of like biding time for the main stuff they wanted to happen at certain points. But I still think when it did hit the fan, it was done fairly well. Of course, Jensen Ackles is as good as ever. Jared Padalecki is also just a really true talent as well. And you really feel for Sam's end of it too, being so desperate to save his brother, and Dean supposedly not wanting to, save himself or really care about it if he lives or dies, and you sort of find out more about that inner part of him as well, which is also really well focused on in Season 2. But anyway, The Magnificent Seven, the Season 1 opener, Season 3 opener, excuse me. It was actually written by one of the main creators, Eric Kripke. I really enjoyed this because you sort of had that isolated feel with all of them being locked in this house and trying to fend all these people off once they found him and they pissed him off and stuff. You also had Bobby in there and such, and that's also when you have the introduction to the Ruby character played by Katie Cassidy, who just comes in and just kicks ass and takes names. With her special dagger and knife and such. So I really enjoyed this one. It was like a very action-heavy premiere. It wasn't just like a mystery to start off or anything. It just really pulled you in. I think it was a pretty fun episode. Episode 2, The Kids Are Alright. Dean drops in on an old girlfriend he hasn't seen in 9 years. Weird.
She has an 8-year-old who reminds Dean of Dean. Weirder, the neighborhood kids are suddenly different. Frightening. Why can't I say frighteningly? Frighteningly different. There you go. This was a good episode. I was pretty surprised by it. Of course, things are always kind of creepy when you have kids kind of pulling some of this stuff, even though it wasn't them, but it was these things, of course, in the kids' bodies. But my favorite part of it was, of course, Dean thinking he might have a son who's 8 years old at this point. And it was just really fun to see not the banter, but sort of just like the chemistry between the kid and Jensen Ackles in this. Definitely have the personality of Dean, and it's almost like too much like Dean not to be his kid, and how Dean sort of got him to basically kick a bully in the balls and such. Really good lesson from Dean there. That was all a lot of fun, and just to sort of again see Dean's like psyche about how he'd feel about being a father and stuff, how I played that off, I think was really good. I felt like his old slave here was also had a good amount of chemistry with Dean and such too. Okay, episode 3, Bad Day at Black Rock. It's Sam's lucky day when he touches a rabbit's foot. Everything from scratching lottery tickets to fighting bad guys goes right, then Sam loses the foot and everything goes wrong, maybe dead wrong. And this is a really funny episode. Supernatural, a lot of times this season proved to me also more than ever that it can have such really touching, serious drama and emotional moments, but it can also just be one of the funniest shows I've ever seen, really. Like I said, I'm watching Supernatural and Shameless, a couple times a day each, and sometimes Supernatural honestly makes me laugh a little bit more. But then again with Shameless, it's not just a comedy. It's it's a can sometimes be considered a dramedy, or sometimes even more of a drama than a comedy. But this is of course one of the funniest episodes of Supernatural I've seen. It's just really fun to watch Jared Padalecki sort of like act out, especially when Sam's luck gets flipped around and goes bad. Just when he starts like running into everything, or like slipping and falling, or just knocking things over. It's just really funny and awkward, and you kind of feel for Sam. And of course when they have to have a fight scene with these guys who were of course got mixed up with them, we're looking into them, just how everything just they're all really clumsy with it, but then just how there's all these little coincidences when the guy when this bowl falls on top of his head or something, or he just happens to fall into the shelf or just trip. It's just really cheesy, but it's so good. But yeah, so episode 3, Bad Day at Black Rock, was a really fun one. Episode 4, Sin City. Vegas is for wimps. America's hottest sin city is Elizabethville, Ohio, a nowhere factory town that's sunk in booze, gambling, sex, and violence thanks to some newly arrived hellspawn. And this was a decent one. It didn't really get me like some of the other ones did this season, but I think it was, of course, definitely watchable. Supernatural is always, really, really easy to watch, I think, anyway. It wasn't one of the standout episodes, so I think it was fine. Just keep going. Episode 5, Bedtime Stories. Once upon a time, it's a couple of Grimm brothers, Sam and Dean, versus the Brothers Grimm, when a rash of gruesome murders patterned on fairy tales terrifies a small town. This is a pretty good one. Of course, one of the main fairy tales going around is the big bad wolf. And I thought that they're going to actually have the guy be a wolf, but it turns out that these psyches of these fairy tale things to go wrong are just put inside these people's heads, and then they act them out. So I was almost hoping we'd see the full wolf thing, really, because we did see the werewolves last season, with the whole Madison thing, and episode 17, Heart, which is a really good episode, by the way, and how they handle the whole werewolf mythology and stuff is really good. But I still think they could do more with the werewolf design instead of just a slightly scrunched nose and the claws and the eyes. I think they could add more fur to it and more just figurement sort of, really. or not disfigurement, but just like different facial, alterations and stuff. So I was hoping to see something a little more like that here, more like werewolf-like maybe. But that wasn't a big deal. And we see, I forget the actor's name, but he played Ted in Breaking Bad, and I've also seen him in a couple other things. He was this girl's father at the hospital. Was sort of like played off as Snow White, and she was in this coma and sort of was like acting out, and sort of getting her vengeance because no one knew what really happened to her, that she was actually put into this coma because of I think it was her stepmother, and she had to get their father to realize that before she would sort of let go. So I thought that was actually pretty good. Episode 6, Red Sky at Morning. A watery death without the water. Bela joins the boys in solving the mystery of a ghost ship that appears every 37 years, leaving dry land drownings in its wake. And this is a good one. Again, not really one of the standout ones. The guy looked, somewhat creepy, but not really like. He sort of reminded me of like the Hook Man in season 1, really, to me anyway. Again, I do like Lauren Cohan's Bela, so she added a little bit more, pizzazz to the episode, I guess. But it was an alright episode. And of course, Bela, her weird chemistry with the boys, it's kind of fun to see them play off of each other. They're sort of like love-hate relationship, and how they actually have to end up working together a little bit eventually, but then it gets really turned on its ass by the end of the season. So it was an alright episode. Episode 7, Fresh Blood. Really, really good episode. Gordon Walker escapes from prison, intent on killing Sam. A run-in with a vampire leaves Gordon one of the undead, and an even more formidable foe. So we see the last episode, as far as I know, with the Gordon character. Just a really misguided, skilled, but sort of just like driven, insane hunter. And he was always played pretty well. And just to see him be turned into a vampire, of course, it's complete full circle for the character. He was definitely creepy and intense as a vampire too. So I thought this worked really well, and it's always really intense when Sam or Dean have fight scenes with him. And of course he's working with some of these partners he brought along, and he ends up killing this one after he tries to get the guy to let him go just to finish this one job before he kills himself, of course killing Sam, because he still believes Sam is a danger to this whole world if he's left alive, even more so than him being a vampire for a little while. Excuse me. But I thought that this is all handled really well, and it's one of the more like serious type of themes they have for a supernatural episode are vampires. So I think this worked well again. Of course, vampires. I'm a big fan of vampires, so that always gets me a little bit more. Of course, Gordon is finally killed at the end. Sam actually takes his head off. So that was brutal. And again, throughout the season, you see like little flickers of Sam having more of like a darkness or like a coldness inside of him, which is always handled pretty well, I think. Episode 8, A Very Supernatural Christmas. What comes down the chimney? Santa Claus. What goes up the chimney? Screaming, clawing victims of the Anti-Claus. A pagan god with an unjolly thirst for blood. Scary Christmas. Sam and Dean. So yeah, this is a pretty good one actually. Of course, there's this sort of like a fun episode because of like the threat. They're a little bit creepy, but at the same time you can't fully take them seriously because they're these demons or these pagan gods inside this like sweet old couple, and then they have this really creepy bloody basement and stuff. And they fit in so well with the neighborhood and such, but they're secretly really annoyed and frustrated with all of it. But that stuff is alright, but what really made the episode nice was the touching moments between Sam and Dean, of course. Just thinking about Christmas, it sort of like goes back to some parts of their childhood and such, and just how I think it might be the last Christmas they have together, what's going to happen with Dean. So I think that really made the episode. Episode 9, Malu Malef Kerem. I can't pronounce that apparently. A woman's book club is really a cover for a murderous coven, and Ruby has suspiciously accurate knowledge about how witches kill. So this was alright. It's good to see Ruby sort of have this feud with this specific witch in this girl's body. And of course, the cover of these girls, of the Switch cover being a book club, of course, is like kind of generic but kind of funny at the same time. It was a pretty decent episode, I guess. Episode 10, Dream a Little Dream of Me. With the aid of a plant called African Dream Root, Sam and Dean dreamwalk into Bobby's mind, hoping to discover who or what put their friend into a coma. So that was a different type of setup to it, of course, to see Bobby in a state like that. But, of course, it gets turned around on the boys, and it sort of becomes more of something that they have to deal with personally. And I thought this was a pretty good episode. Of course, there's some more stuff added to that with, of course, with that Ruby was discovering it. Not discovering, but sort of like how she was sort of like dropping this little information about Dean throughout the season, like saying how she might know how to save him and such, but that sort of gets turned into a clusterfuck by the end of it. But yeah, very decent episode. Okay, episode 11, Mystery Spot. Groundhog Day, supernatural style. It's Tuesday every day in town with a tourist trap called the Mystery Spot. Only Sam is aware of the phenomenon, and only Sam will be permanently changed by it. So this is, again, really one of those funny episodes of the show. And, of course, Sam gets caught in this loop where he sees Dean die, like, every day, over and over on a Tuesday. He goes through the same routine, like, I think it was, like, a couple hundred times or something like that. Again, it's just really funny to see Jared Padalecki, like, act out just, like, Sam's, like, awkward moments and frustration and such. He wanted to take it seriously, but he just couldn't. It's played off in a comedic way. Of course, it's, like, at first it's hard to see, like, Dean die, but then, you feel really bad at first, and then you feel like, oh, shit, but that just becomes funny. Like, he starts dying in all these, like, ridiculous, like, by chance ways. Like, it goes from, like, him getting hit by a truck to, like, him, like, choking on his food, or these tacos taste funny to you, or you hear him slipping in the shower or something, or he just gets hit by someone dropping a piano from a floor of a building. It was just really funny, or him, like, going to pet this dog and him just getting, like, mauled. So it was a lot of fun, and it turns out to be this whole trick and setup by the Trickster from season 2, which is kind of funny that he was still after him and such, and played by the same guy, which is good. So that was a lot of fun. Episode 12, Justin Bello. It's the right to sacrifice one person in the hope of saving many. Sam and Dean wrestle with this heart-wrenching question when they're jailed in a small town where the locals are possessed by demons. Really good episode, sort of similar to The Magnificent Seven, first episode of season 3. And that, we see them, trapped in this one location, sort of fending off a bunch of threats. And I always like that stuff. It provides like an automatic good feel to any like movie or show, really. And I like it quite a bit. And Kool-Aid supposedly have to sacrifice, one for the many. This girl is played by Amy Garcia, I think her name is. She was on George Lopez, the sitcom. She also had a role in Dexter as a nanny for a couple seasons. So it's kind of cool to see her on here. She played Nancy. Supposedly this very innocent girl and such, and because she is a virgin, she is going to be sacrificed. And what also made this episode as good as it was the involvement of Agent Henriksen. Of course, he's been on the boys' tail since season 2, and you were always waiting for a moment when he would finally realize they were telling the truth, like something supernatural happening in that prison or something. But no, it turns out it happens here. He ends up being possessed himself, and when Dean and Sam are able to get him out of it, when Dean's locked in there after he's so smug about finally getting a hold of him, he finally realizes that, oh shit. And so it's good to see like that change dynamic with Henriksen and the boys. Sam and Dean and Henriksen actually end up connecting pretty well on their different how they've lived their lives and such, and they have a couple very good scenes together. And this is the first time you hear about this Lilith, character, who turns out to be, the primary threat by the end of the season, as far as we know. Of course, Ruby also gets involved. So yeah, very good episode. And it was unfortunate that Henriksen was killed off right at the end of this. He does survive this whole trap, but something ends up happening afterward, and it kills everyone inside, including him. So that was unfortunate. It's just like sort of generic that he died right after realizing what's really going on and finally helping him. Then of course he dies. It's still a good episode nonetheless. Episode 13, Ghost Facers. Strap in for the scariest hour in the history of television. Ghost hunting dweebs and reality show wannabes Ed and Harry invade the same haunted house Sam and Dean are investigating. The results are unreal. And this episode is pretty unique, actually, in the fact that it was all shot and like it was all filmed like from the Ghost Facers perspective, of the guy, I think his name was Spruce, holding the camera. It's kind of like all shown like through this camera the guy was holding, and so that made it a little bit different. It was also a lot of times from the perspective of the Ghost Facers, which made it for a a different thing. We've seen Ed and Harry back in I forget if it was season 1 or 2, but we had seen them before, so it's kind of funny to see Sam and Dean's reaction to running into these guys again. And of course there's this legend in the house like every I think it was every like 4 years or something, or I think it was like this cycle and such that he comes out and like kills and such. So that setup was alright, and then we get this dynamic between Ed and Corbett. Corbett sort of has this like gay crush on Ed, and at first it's really awkward, but they actually have a really touching scene together at the end where Ed needs to actually pull Corbett out of this death loop that he's stuck in, and that ends up being the key to defeating what's in there. So yeah, pretty fun episode. It sort of felt like a filler episode in a way, but it was kind of entertaining to see those guys again, and it was kind of unique in the way it was filmed and such, like I said, with a different perspective. Episode 14, Long Distance Call. Calls from dead loved ones lure the living to suicide. For the brothers, it's a classic exercise in demon hunting logic, but Dean loses his scientific detachment when he receives one of the calls from John. And of course this played down a lot of Dean's feelings for their father, of course missing him and such. And for a second you think that, did John actually come back somehow? For a second you're kind of teased with that idea, but it just can't be true. But Dean, he's just, of course, a lot of feelings get mixed up with all that. And then he gets this idea that his father supposedly ends up telling him that he knows how to get Dean out of this, and he has a set for him, but he's really luring him into killing the demon is. So this is a good episode. Episode 15, Time is on My Side. In 1816, a doctor saw the secret to eternal life by harvesting vital organs from the living. Maybe he found it. The doc is still going strong in 2008. And John had actually went after this one before. He actually tore out his heart, but the doctor actually came back after being defeated by him so many years ago. And this is a pretty good one. It sort of was also a setup for the finale, so it sort of had a little bit of an extra importance to it, and Sam was also interested in this, as a way to save Dean, potentially. So it was a pretty good episode. And we also see the end of Bela here as well. And we find a little bit more about her story as Dean has more information about her from this guy named Rufus that Bobby had known. And we find out that her name's actually Abby, and of course we knew she had a hand in killing her parents, but it turned out that she had made this deal, and now the Hellhounds are after her, in return, sort of like the deal Dean made in a certain way, just like a very different setup, of course. And it's basically implied that Bela is killed at the end as Dean sort of just hangs up and leaves her to be attacked. You see Bela shut her eyes as the Hellhounds are outside, supposedly approaching and such, and then the camera cuts to black, and then we don't see anything. So maybe she could come back. I'm just not sure how long Lauren Cohan is on the show. I know Walking Dead didn't start for her until like a few years after this, so maybe she is actually still alive. I don't know. I feel like it would sort of be I get that maybe her character didn't have to necessarily be hugely important, but at the same time I feel like it would be a waste just to have her be dead there. But I'm not sure. Episode 16, the finale, No Rest for the Wicked. This is only 16 episodes, by the way, instead of the usual 22 or 23. No Rest for the Wicked. Dean's time is run out. With Bobby at their side, the brothers battle Lilith, entered the mock army in a last desperate attempt to save Dean from emotional damnation. No, not emotional, eternal damnation. This is a pretty good finale, I don't think it was as strong as the season 1 finale or the last few episodes to season 2. But it certainly kept it off in a good way, and it had a huge cliffhanger at the end of it. Again, it had that sort of like isolated feel, the brothers trapped in there and trying to fight against like all these odds and such. So I really like that feel to it, as always. And Lilith, of course, being in that little girl's body. I'm getting a little bit tired of like seeing like kids, trying to be this like huge creepy factor, but it worked all right here with Lilith's form. Of course, we've seen her come in at the end of the other episode, which she ended up killing Henriksen and the others and such. And Ruby, she ends up sort of getting mixed up in it all, but Dean sort of ends up trapping her after a brief fight scene between the three of them. We don't really know what happens to Ruby either, because we know Lilith went into her body at some point, but we don't know if we're going to see Ruby again either. So I'm kind of wondering about that. And Dean actually ends up being attacked by the Hellhound at the end. It was really rough to see him just getting torn apart. There's actually quite a bit of blood. Dean's my favorite character, so it's kind of like hard to watch that happen to him. I'm surprised it actually happened, really. The show's been on for many years now, so I know that both the brothers have jumped between life and death a lot of times by now. But to see that happen to Dean in that fashion is hard to watch. And of course, we get the cliffhanger ending of Sam just wreck over losing him, and then we see Dean. He's just pretty much trapped in hell, as far as we know. Sort of like wrapped in these chains and like begging for help. Calling out for Sam or something. So yeah, hell of a cliffhanger, man. So yeah, overall season 3, really good season. I don't think it was as strong as the first 2. But it definitely had its good standout episodes, as always. It definitely still had its moments. Some really funny episodes in there too. And yeah, so it didn't really affect the show for me, not as impressive or standout as the first 2, but still it held up, I thought. It was still on par for the most part with the first 2, I think. Just didn't quite reach the heights of those either. But definitely a really good setup for season 4, and season 4 sounds amazing, so I'm probably actually going to end up starting it tonight. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's something about season 3 you want me to talk more about, or if it's something I didn't mention at all, feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to talk about it more with you guys. I absolutely love Supernatural at this point. It's going to end up being one of my favorite shows of all time. I'm so glad I'm watching it. I'm really late, but hey, better late than never, right? So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, like, subscribe, and catch you guys next time. Peace. And it was also 16 episodes, like I said, which was in a way nice to have a shorter season, but at the same time you kind of crave having those episodes added on. But I believe this is like during the writer's strike or something, I heard. But still, it's still, is what it is. So yeah, catch you guys next time. Peace.